So last week in the crypto markets, man, it was like watching two totally different stories unfold at the same time. In one corner, you had all this venture capital, millions of dollars, pouring into this long-term vision of AI and blockchain coming together. And in the other corner, you had this ticking time bomb of token unlocks, just causing these wild short-term price swings. So, which one should you have been paying attention to? Let's get into it. And this quote right here, it just nails that tension perfectly. It's a tale of two timelines, right? You've got this huge foundational shift happening, this AI native infrastructure that's all about the future. But at the same time, the day-to-day prices are getting yanked around by the immediate and sometimes kind of brutal impact of these big token unlocks. Let's kick things off with that long-term picture first. All right, so let's talk about that big signal, this long-term trend. I mean, for months now, this idea of AI and blockchain converging has been the big narrative. But what we saw last week were signs that it's moving past just being talk. It's becoming a real structural investment theme. And you know the best way to track a theme like that, right? You follow the money. So how do you separate all the hype from what's actually the real deal? Well, one of the best ways is to follow the venture capital. Let's dig into the hard numbers from last week's funding, because honestly, they tell a very, very clear story about where the smart money is placing its bets. Think about that for a second. Over $165 million in a single week across 15 different deals. You know, in a market that's been pretty choppy lately, that level of investment is a massive vote of confidence. But here's the real kicker. It's not just about the total amount, it's about where that money is specifically going. And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at this breakdown. Yeah, sure, you see funding spread out across DeFi and general infrastructure, but this single biggest category of deals, AI plus Web3, that is absolutely not a coincidence, folks. This is targeted capital, strategically being placed on what VCs clearly think is the next major frontier. Okay, so this naturally leads us to the big players in this whole DAI, or decentralized AI space. And this isn't just about, sprinkling some AI buzzwords on top of old crypto projects. Nope. We're talking about building an entirely new, decentralized foundation for artificial intelligence. And inside that whole story, a couple of names are really starting to steal the show. And if you were paying attention to market chatter last week, you heard two names pop up again and again and again. They were consistently pointed to as the main projects benefiting from this whole trend: BitTensor and Render. And this slide lays out their roles perfectly. Here's the easiest way to wrap your head around it. Think of BitTensor as the decentralized brain. It's this marketplace where different AI models can all talk to each other and get smarter together. And Render, well, that's the decentralized muscle, this huge global network of computer power, or GPUs, that you need to actually run all those AI models. You can't have one without the other, right? And they're becoming the go-to projects for each side of that coin. And just to give you a sense of scale here, to really understand why BitTensor is such a big deal, look at its valuation. A market cap floating around 3.4 times billion dollars, that doesn't just make it a leader. It basically makes it a heavyweight champion for the entire DII world. Okay, so that's the big, exciting, long-term story. But here's the thing. While all that was going on under the surface, the day-to-day price action was being dominated by something completely different. We need to switch gears completely now and look at the most powerful short-term force that was at play last week: the unlock watch. All right, if you're a trader, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Token unlocks are these dates you circle on your calendar in big red ink. Basically, it's when a whole bunch of previously frozen tokens, usually held by early investors or the team, get released into the wild. It's a sudden jolt to the supply, and that almost always creates some serious volatility. And wow, last week was a huge one. The market had to somehow absorb over $221 million worth of newly unlocked tokens. That is a massive wave of potential selling pressure hitting the market all at once, and it's a major headwind for pretty much any asset. And we're not talking about some obscure small cap projects here. Take a look at this list. We're talking about giants like Solana and Arbitrum, plus other tokens everyone's watching, like Worldcoin. Every single one of these unlocks was a major event for its own ecosystem, which made the schedule an absolutely essential roadmap for any short-term trader last week. Okay, so we've got these two completely different forces pulling the market in opposite directions. You've got the slow, steady drumbeat of DAI, and then you've got this fast and furious chaos from the unlocks. So what does it all mean for you? Let's break down how you might think about this. Well, it really all boils down to your timeline, doesn't it? If you're a day-to-day trader, that unlock schedule was the most direct, actionable piece of information you had. It gave you clear events to trade around. But if you're a long-term investor, the signal was to keep your eyes on the prize, the core DAI infrastructure plays like BitTensor and Render. And for those of us just watching the big picture, the venture funding keeps confirming that this combo of AI and Web3 is where everyone thinks the future is heading. And that leaves us with the one big critical question we all have to ask ourselves. Sure, token unlocks are just temporary noise, but this convergence of AI and blockchain, it feels like something much bigger, much more permanent. So are we just watching another hot crypto trend that'll fade away in a year? Or are we literally watching the very beginning of the next massive tectonic shift in technology? The answer to that, well, it could define the next decade. So what do you think?